Okay, moving up volume and all right, everyone. I meant to do this video Friday, but I ran out of time. I was going to do this video last night, but I kind of lost all drive to record a review. So I am going to do this review of The Force Awakens. I hopefully will be able to finish the Star Wars saga by early August at least. Yeah, so that being said, well, I was gonna say The Force Awakens, but I mean the title down there kind of gave it away, so I'm not really sure what the point is. So a little background is that this movie came out 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, which again at the time was heralded as the final Star Wars movie. It bridged the gap between the prequel to the original trilogy. And when Disney bought Star Wars from Lucasfilm and bought Lucasfilm itself, I guess it was only a matter of time before they actually decided to review or go over this movie. I've already reviewed this one before, but I'll just redo it, which I don't mind doing redos. It's a part of my thing. So the plot of this movie is basically episode 4 with a few different alterations to the script. The way this movie worked, it's like a modern band doing a cover of a classic rock tune, only they changed it around a bit. And they added a few new elements as well. So the story is that once again there's another evil empire of sorts called the First Order trying to take over the galaxy, and once again there's another rebellion trying to keep them from carrying out their evil schemes. So, and one thing that's actually pretty cool is that it does also harken back to the original trilogy by having Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, and Mark Hamill come back for the movie. Granted, Mark Hamill doesn't show up until like the last 2 minutes of the film, but that's just sets up Last Jedi, which is probably the most divisive movie of the Star Wars franchise, or at least of a sequel trilogy, which I'll get to next week. So basically, the movie is people trying to fight off the bad guys and also trying to find out where Luke is. And I feel like, as far as characters go, I feel like I was more intrigued by the original cast returning and their baggage more than the new cast. But there is a very interesting idea with one of the new main characters, with Finn being a stormtrooper who refuses to be a part of the First Order. So that is kind of an interesting storyline that you have someone who starts off on the wrong side, but then gets out of there as fast as he can because he just hates the organization. And along the way, he bumps into a prisoner of war, Poe Dameron, who he helps escape. And in the process of escaping, they end up on Tatooine 2.0. I mean, Jakku, um, where Finn crash lands, thinks Poe's dead, runs into Rey, who's kind of our Luke Skywalker of the movie. She's living a hand to mouth life. She ends up becoming the hero, and she also ultimately wants to learn the ways of the Force, which it is kind of weird. My one complaint with Rey is that she seems to know how to get in and out of every situation extraordinarily quickly, which is a little weird because she's supposed to be this little scavenger on this desert planet. So it's a little weird that she would know how to fly the Millennium Falcon. I can kind of understand how she would. I don't know, her knowing how to do all that stuff with the lightsaber. The lightsaber stuff I can excuse because of what they're building up to in the sequels in the sequel trilogy. That I can excuse, but I can understand why some people would find it to be very derivative of the first movie. Right down to her having Han Solo as a mentor who gets killed by Kylo Ren, who turns out to be Han's son. Um, yeah, that was and originally in one of the earlier drafts of the script, it was actually going to be Leia that got killed off instead of Han Solo. Um, as a diehard Harrison Ford fan, I'm okay with it because the scene was obviously building up to Han getting killed. So if they had that tension and didn't give that payoff, I'm not. I don't think a lot of people would have responded to it happily, but they wouldn't have responded to it positively. All in all, I do think that my one main problem with the new characters is that they have charm, they have some charisma, but the movie doesn't really take a lot of time to develop these new characters. I mean, we get emotionally invested in the older characters because we've already seen them in the original trilogy time and time again, and we've already seen them in the expanded universe. But with Ray and Finn, and Poe, yeah, they really good acting. They got some good character, but we don't really get to see them interact as much. Most of it is just people going into an adrenaline junkie thrill ride with funny quips and one-liners. The humor is pretty funny, I'll give it that, but I feel like if we really wanted to get invested in these characters, you could have given them more screen time, or at least sort of dive into their psyche and mental states through all this. But it felt like the film was on fast forward, which is that is a common problem I've heard with a lot of J.J. Abrams films is that he doesn't really bother with character development. He just kind of speeds through it, almost as if he's on the Spark Notes version of how to do a Star Wars script. Um, but I mean, overall, the cast did a great job. It's just they could have done more with the new characters to give them more of a backbone. It's like with the new characters, it's like they had the blueprints for making these characters stand out, and they gave up on finishing the character building at like 2/3 of the way through the development stage. As for Kylo Ren, they do go into his backstory in Last Jedi, but I do think it's kind of interesting how they set up in this movie. I think he and Finn are probably the most interesting characters because they do set up some of their dilemmas about am I doing the right thing or what should I be doing? And they really go with that with Ren because he's evil, but he's fighting it, but he's still giving in. It's like he keeps flip flopping back and forth. It's almost like it's an addiction of some sort. Like, when you're trying to stop taking drugs, you're stop trying to be an alcoholic, you keep going through those phases where you feel like you're in control, then you go right back into the self-destructive cycle. So I thought that was a really good back and forth with the character because we never really saw that in any of the other Star Wars movies. It's usually the character turns evil and there's not really a conflict of interest with that character over whether they want to keep doing bad or do they want to redeem themselves and ultimately become the good guys again. You know, I mean, we've seen attempts at a dramatic fall of the character of Anakin Skywalker, but as I've said in the prequels, that was not handled very well. Interesting idea, a story of merit, yes, but the execution of that storyline just did not work at all. Um, so aside from this film being too derivative of The New Hope, and aside from the fact that the characters are good but could use some more development, I'm not really sure what else you can say. I think the one thing I would say is that it is kind of fun to think that this movie came out at a time when people were still kind of banking on the nostalgia of Star Wars and people were kind of living in the glory days of the original trilogy and all this stuff. So I think what this movie means more is it's more like a reintroducing of the saga and some of these characters to a new generation so we can get more fans in Star Wars. So I really appreciate the movie more for its cultural significance rather than the actual contents of its presentation. So I would say it's definitely a really good start to the sequel trilogy, and a part of me can make an argument for why it is derivative of the New Hope movie. I think it had a lot to do with the fact that they were trying to play it safe. They were trying to do something that would be good and also sort of reestablish the franchise with old fans and like I said, reintroduce it to newcomers. So I see why they ripped off a lot of stuff from New Hope because they were trying to make a safe bet and they were also trying to make it as epic as possible, but they wanted to make sure that this was a crowd pleaser. So I see why they went the route that they did. I think that's really all I have to say about the movie, but I do think that it was nice to see visual effects that looked like they were done practically. I mean, there are some CG shots in the movie, but it feels like they went back to the old school of using really convincing models and animatronics to sell the effects of the movie. And it was a lot of fun. So I'm not. That's pretty much all I really have to say about the movie. I will review Last Jedi next Friday. I'm not gonna mess around with you guys this time. It's gonna be next Friday. I'll do the review. And Monday, I will be doing my Bruce Springsteen cover of Crush on You. And I pray to God that the guitar I use doesn't have a string that snaps tomorrow. So, see ya.